Just been watching flames tear through homes and hopefully not too many businesses. It's been pretty bad.
Wildfires racing out of control 1 year ago in San Diego County.
I know it's just stuff, but there's a whole life, 2, 3, 4 lives worth of stuff in that house.
In less than a week, 14 separate fires left 27,000 acres scorched.
This fire has really taken off. Firefighters say that the wind comes sweeping through that valley and acts like a chimney, and it basically pushes the flames up into that heavy fuel.
We've saved a lot of homes. We've lost a few, unfortunately, but sometimes that's what happens because of the winds. We just, can't control where it goes.
The lessons learned from the May wildfires and what we can expect for the next fire season. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. I'm Dwayne Brown. Thanks for joining us. Preparing for fire season, county leaders examined the regional response to several wildfires that burned through the region 1 year ago. They met today near canyons that were in the path of the May wildfires. Supervisor Diane Jacobs says better coordination between agencies plus new equipment will help firefighting capabilities this year.
This year, and it could be a rough one, we're better prepared for wildfire than we have ever been. We've worked hard across our backcountry to boost the number of boots on the ground and the assets in the air.
Firefighters say a big concern are new water restrictions that may threaten homeowners' ability to maintain defensible space around their property. Peggy Pico has more on how the May wildfires changed the way fire crews respond on the front lines.
Joining me with details on the new Santa Ana wind rating tool and how it could help save lives is my guest, SDG&E senior meteorologist Steve Vandenberg. Also joining us with lessons learned from last year's fire in Carlsbad is Battalion Chief Jeff Chumley. Now, Jeff, 46 single-family homes were destroyed in the May wildfires last year. The Poinsettia fire in Carlsbad, I understand, was the second fire to break out, and it was the most devastating. Describe the scene when you first arrived there.
Well, it was very chaotic. As you know, the fire started near Poinsettia. I went directly to Cassia, which is where there was a large apartment complex, and the fire was already reaching that location. So as I got out of my vehicle to kind of continue with the size up for incoming units, I looked to my immediate right, and there was a large apartment complex, and cars were already on fire in the parking lot. There were people running from their apartments with no shoes, no shirt, and I had police officers helping with the evacuations. To my immediate left was a dental office, an all-cats hospital, and then just to the north of me was a large housing development. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is not good. And the wind conditions were pushing the fire, as well as there were slopes in the area, so the topography was also driving the fire, and the fire was moving rather quickly. Our goal was to try to keep the fire from crossing El Camino Real, and within minutes we knew that was not going to happen. The fire had already driven it across El Camino Real.
And so, Steve, Jeff mentioned these Santa Ana winds. As a meteorologist, you monitor Santa Ana winds. What were they like during the May wildfires, and how did that compare to the wildfires of 2003 and 2007?
Well, the Santa Ana winds that occurred during that event were quite strong, and what made it more remarkable was that it was occurring so late in the season in May. But from a wind speed and a vegetation perspective, that was the fourth highest risk event we've seen in 30 years in this county. And October 2007, of course, being the highest risk, the strongest Santa Ana wind event on record for this county. But to have the fourth strongest and highest risk Santa Ana wind event in 30 years in May is rather unusual.
And with those winds and the topography, like you said, Jeff, what were some of the major challenges in fighting this fire?
Well, certainly resources were, at a minimum at the time. We had the Bernardo fire, as you know, the day before. It did help us because resources were there, but that did, calling a third alarm, calling for local resources. But it took a while to be able to get all of the resources that were needed, especially as people were being drawn away to fight Cocos, to fight Pendleton, to fight Oceanside, where all the fires were.
And Steve, the U.S. Forest Service now uses this rating system it's in place now for Santa Ana winds, I understand. It's similar to category, right? The categories for tornadoes and hurricanes. How does it work specifically for Santa Ana winds?
Well, what it does is it looks at the weather conditions and it looks at the fuels conditions or the vegetation. And then based on those conditions, it calculates what the potential is for large fires under those circumstances, and then it gives it a rating. Just like you said, just like a hurricane gets rated on its strength, the Santa Ana wind events get rated on their potential to produce large fires. And then once that rating is sent out by the Forest Service, it's available to the public through SantaAnaWildfireThreat.com.
And some of the things it lists, like here we're looking at Mount Laguna, right? Wind gust, speed, direction. How would somebody specifically use this system, use this type of map?
Well, you would log in to see a 6-day forecast for what's coming. So if you hear on the news there's a Santa Ana wind event coming or a red flag warning, you'd log in and see, oh, this is rated extreme. And attached to that extreme rating will be a series of steps that people can take to prepare. And then also, as you were just showing there to your audience, that you can actually go in, it's interactive, and start clicking on the weather around your area and see what the winds are actually doing closest to your neighborhood.
And it's a 6-day forecast, so you have a little time to prepare, which basically, Jeff, so does the fire department use this sort of information, and how is the fire department preparing for this year's fire season?
Well, first of all, absolutely any information we have is going to help us to keep ourselves prepared. We do our regular annual training for wildland. We understand the fire behavior and the fuels. We have county-wide drills that we work on to prepare for this, and of course preparing our citizens to make sure that they're prepared and are ready.
All right. Chief Jeff Chumley and meteorologist Steve Vanderberg, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The May wildfires were the largest since the devastating 2007 wildfires in San Diego County. The cost estimate of the fires was at least $56 million. It burned over a 5-day period, scorching 27,000 acres. It started the morning of May 13th near Rancho Bernardo and quickly spread to 14 separate fires from Carlsbad to San Marcos, with approximately 121,000 people forced from their homes. On this one-year anniversary of the Cocos fire, recovery is slow for neighbors of Harmony Grove. Angelique Hartman says the 2-lane roads in the hills between San Marcos and Escondido make evacuation difficult, and new developments to the north and east could make matters worse. Hartman did not lose her home, but some of her neighbors did, and she says they have not rebuilt. While people who live in the newer developments in San Elijo Hills have also complained evacuation routes are inadequate. When the Cocos fire raced through the hills bordering San Marcos, Dan Eubank's 4,000-square-foot home was among the casualties. He built it himself 32 years ago.
We held on to the thought that we could come up here and sift through the ashes and find my wife's grandmother's jewelry, that sort of thing. It doesn't happen. There is nothing left. It melts everything.
Tomorrow on Evening Edition, we'll tell you how Eubanks is rebuilding his home with help from his neighbors. The drought has left bone-dry conditions here in California. Firefighters say that may help fuel more wildfires this season. CAL FIRE is following the lead of other organizations trying to cut back on their own water usage. Firefighters say they are conserving by recycling whatever water they use in training exercises and by using hand tools and dirt to keep wildfires from spreading. They say landscaping choices could help, especially for homeowners who are thinking about the drought.
There are a lot of ground covers, a lot of native plants here in California that are fire resistant. They really retain the little moisture that they need. That moisture allows them to withstand that fire. So they're not fireproof, but they are fire resistant.
Before the drought, fire experts said a green, well-watered lawn was the best protection against wildfires, but more lawns are going brown because homeowners are trying to save water. Peggy Pico continues our coverage tonight with a look at how to prepare for fires during this drought.
National Weather Service meteorologist Alex Tardy and San Diego Fire Rescue Department Assistant Chief Brian Fennessy, welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Now, Chief Fennessy, we're in our 4th year of drought. What does that do to our wildfire risk?
Well, clearly, 4 years without enough rain is a big deal here in Southern California, and certainly in San Diego. We're seeing fuel moisture drop significantly. One of the interesting things we're seeing is, we've gotten some rain this year, but we've gotten rain, we've gotten some sun. We've gotten some rain, we've gotten some sun. The big difference is, as opposed to past years, is we're seeing a grass crop out there that we haven't seen in years. Those fine fuels, which we consider fuels, those grasses are going to dry, and they're going to carry the fire now into that dead, decadent, heavy brush. And this is something we haven't had in the last 3 or 4 years. So we expect that the number of fires is going to increase, and the fires are going to get larger because the grasses are going to spread the fire into the heavier fuels.
Are there any other specific challenges to fighting fire related to the drought? I'm thinking water resources.
Well, there are. Within the urban area, we're blessed by having a very good water grid, and we can fill our helicopters on the ground through the hydrant system. But when you start getting out into the backcountry or the more rural areas where our helicopters and the county's helicopters go to, draw water from, they're empty. They're going to have to now go to lakes and other water sources further away from the fires, which is going to increase those turnaround times, which means less suppressant on those fires. So it's going to have a big effect.
And Alex, I've read that there are now 12 million dead trees in California's national forest. How dry is it really out there?
We're really starting to see the impact now, and the trees are showing up right in front of us as being the most stressful impact from this whole drought. 4 years of drought. We're missing almost 2 seasons of precipitation when you add it all together. Across the state, 26 inches of precipitation missing in the past 4 years. Compound that, we've had the warmest 4-year period we've ever seen on record. The warmth is just an added stress. Lower humidity and higher temperatures are not good for fires. They're not good for trees and vegetation.
And so, we had a couple of days of rain last week, and we've had little bits of rain, as you were talking about, off and on. What kind of impact do these small little rainstorms have, if any, on this precipitation level, bringing it up to where it should be?
It's a little too late. That said, we had all that rain in December. It was quite a bit of rain. Like Brian was saying, all that rain caused a lot of grasses to grow, so it kind of worked against us a little bit. We've had these breaks in between the rain that have just been really warm and dry. The rain we had last Friday and the rain coming up this Friday, it's going to wet the ground. It's going to buy us some time into the spring, delay some severe fire weather season, but by no means end it. And it's not going to really do anything to help our drought.
And Chief Fennessy, what are some of the areas in the county that are most concerning for fire officials?
Certainly those areas that haven't seen fire in quite a long time. But, speaking for the city, and I think I can speak for the, other urban and suburban areas, one of the things we're seeing now are fires that are spreading in what we call these open space islands, or these OSI areas. Much like you saw last year in May, it's not the large fire that's coming out of the East County or the backcountry into the urbanized areas. It's these pockets of canyons. The city of San Diego is built on 900 plus miles of linear canyon, literally built in and out, throughout the city. Those fires may not be, when they start, they may not be large, long duration fires. They might be 5 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, but they're moving so fast because the vegetation is so dry that they're getting into the homes and they're threatening lives and property like we've never seen before. You look at the Poinsettia fire, that was, 1,600 acres? Not a large fire in terms of what we see nationally or statewide, and didn't burn over several days, but it burned a lot of homes, threatened a lot of lives. That's our new reality.
Because it burned fast. So, Alex, what is the weather outlook for this year's wildfire season?
For the wildfire season, we're expecting the summer to continue to be warm. So our record-breaking warmth is expected to continue into the summer. Maybe not quite as hot as last summer, but still with that warmth, we're going to see increased humidity, better chances for thunderstorms, especially over our mountains. Lightning's never good when you have dry fuels and this much vegetation ready to go. So we're going to see weather conditions that do support active fire behavior in terms of warmth, and not just because it's summer, but just above normal warmth and humidity being low. And
Chief Fennessy, we have to end on this, but what are local fire agencies doing to prepare?
Well, certainly we're getting out and we're talking with the community. Our Ready, Set, Go program, which you can find on the city's website, www.sandiego.gov, provides residents all the tools they need to really prepare in advance of a fire. To talk about what to do once a fire is reported, having your evacuation plan, having a plan in place, and then leaving. I mean, it is really important for you to leave when we say it's time to go. nationally and statewide, we lose a lot of lives from people that decide to evacuate too late.
All right, Chief Fennessy meteorologist Alex Tardy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peggy.
And of course, we have more on the May wildfires anniversary online, including a photo gallery of the firefight. You can see it anytime at kpbs.org. We are learning more tonight about the Marines on board a Camp Pendleton-based helicopter that was delivering supplies to quake victims in Nepal. The search continued today for the chopper, which belongs to the Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 469. The chopper never made it back to base after a 7.3 quake hit Tuesday between Kathmandu and Mount Everest. There are reports one of the Marines is from Murrieta, another one was from Yucca Valley. Immigration activists set up a checkpoint today at the San Ysidro border crossing. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero says they're calling for reforms in the Border Patrol.
Organizers called this a border reality checkpoint. They say they want residents of the border region to know their rights if they're detained, searched, questioned, or mistreated at the border. Members of the Southern Border Communities Coalition wearing orange vests handed out pamphlets in Spanish and English. They said they hope the information will encourage people to report abuses by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Some people said the information makes them feel more confident about crossing the border, but others are not so sure. 53-year-old Martin Trujillo says he crosses the border every day to visit his children in Tijuana. He says he's glad to have the information from the coalition, but he's not sure it will help him.
Forget about any rights. There's no rights. Once you're in there, you're in their hands. They do whatever. They kill Mexican people.
Later this month, the same group plans a demonstration in memory of Anastasio Hernandez Rojas. He died 5 years ago after being tasered by Border Patrol agents. That case prompted a review of Border Patrol policies. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
California leaders are directing colleges to quickly notify authorities when a sexual assault is reported on campus. The move by the state attorney general and UC system president comes amid ongoing scrutiny over the handling of sexual assault cases, where it's estimated 1 in 5 women on college campuses nationwide have been sexually assaulted. The newest measure requires a victim's name be withheld unless they give police consent to release it. Last year, California became the first state to define when yes means yes, simply requiring affirmative consent for sex. In the spirit of equal pay, 2 bills are making their way through the state legislature to help close wage gaps for women. The California Fair Pay Act proposes equal pay for work comparable to their male colleagues and allows workers to challenge employers over pay discrimination. Another bill would require professional sports teams recognize cheerleaders as employees and pay them at least the state minimum wage. A Belmont Park lawsuit could delay redevelopment plans for the old plunge swimming pool. San Diego City Council approved a new 31-year lease plan last month, but a lawsuit filed this week claims it violates city and state regulations. UT San Diego says the agreement goes beyond a public vote that returns Belmont Park to free public space by 2037. The developer has already made millions of dollars in changes, adding a new rooftop community room and 2 oceanfront restaurants. Taxis have had to compete with rideshare companies for some time now. KPBS reporter Megan Burke says they could soon face a new competitor, a publicly funded downtown shuttle.
The city-owned nonprofit Civic San Diego wants to spend $1 million on an on-demand shuttle that would pick up residents and visitors for short trips at little or no cost. Taxi drivers spoke out against the plan at a budget hearing Monday. One driver said business has already dropped between 20% and 30% because of stiff competition from other cabbies and rideshare drivers downtown. And many question whether the money would be better spent on things like homeless services and public restrooms in the neighborhood. The funding would come from parking meter and garage revenue News. Civic San Diego says that money is designated for projects that relieve congestion and improve parking downtown. Residents and businesses involved with the Downtown San Diego Partnership have been pushing for the shuttle for a few years now. The partnership's CEO says the shuttle is meant to complement other transportation options downtown and will alleviate demand for parking, decrease congestion, and will be environmentally friendly. If the Civic San Diego budget gets the okay, the shuttle could start running as early as summer. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next NewsHour, how doctors and scientists understand what it means to be transgender. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
Dancehall has replaced reggae as the defining music of Jamaica. Fans say it's the voice of the people. Critics say it glorifies sex and violence. KPBS reporter Angela Carone talks with a Kingston-born visual artist whose work is set to the beats of dancehall.
At first glance, these may look like 17th century tapestries from Versailles. Look closer and you see these aren't French royalty. These are the followers of dancehall, a style of music in Jamaica. They were made by Kingston-born artist Ebony G. Patterson. She says dancehall is more than music.
It's language, it's dress, it's music, it's movement, it's bravado.
It's also the heart of Jamaican popular culture. And like hip-hop in the U.S., the engine of dancehall is the streets.
It's always within these inner city communities, these kind of rough experiences where people use song and they use dance as a way of expressing and as a way of complaining about things that they're not so happy about.
Kingston's inner city neighborhoods are bleak. There's poverty and violence. Dancehall is an escape.
I like to think of dance hall as this very vibrant, very rhythmic, very colorful, very also very camp culture.
You see all of these elements in Patterson's wall tapestries. She starts with a staged photograph of stock characters from the dance hall scene.
First, I start with a tailor. So I design the outfits, work with models, then I work with a photographer.
The photo is woven into the fabric. Using sturdy tapestries allows her to add layers of colorful paint, jewelry, and glitter to the surface. In fact, Patterson spends days gluing glitter.
A glitter bomb. I'm the glitterati.
The men have hard expressions, typical of the gangster personas glorified in dance hall. But their clothes and jewelry tell a different story.
The flowers, the wallpaper, the bling, the kind of the use of pinks and all of this other kinds of prettiness refers to the feminine. And I'm using these feminine elements as a way to measure the masculine. So how much can I load on there without the masculine being totally lost?
Despite its macho bravado, dance hall fashion has become more and more feminine. Patterson took note of this shift. Baggy pants went out and tight ones came in.
I can remember growing up, you know, they would always say, based on that era, the baggy clothes era, you know, if your pants was too tight, you know, you were a suspect, you know. Your sexuality came into question, your manhood came into question, and here it is, I was looking at the total opposite of that.
The faces in Patterson's tapestries reflect another trend in dance hall. Skin bleaching.
When I think about bleaching, I think about skin blinging, that it's a kind of skin blinging.
Dancehall megastar Vibes Cartel bleaches his skin. Patterson says some in the dancehall scene talk about lightening their skin the same way they talk about clothes.
So I'm going out to go and shop to get this outfit for this party that's happening in 2 weeks. But I also have to buy my case of bleaching cream so that I can make sure that my tone is right with that outfit for that occasion, you know, so that when the camera picks me up, I glow well.
Patterson says the bling, the hyper-feminine outfits, the skin bleaching, it's all a performance, an effort to be seen. because in Jamaica's poor working-class communities, people don't feel seen or valued.
So I could totally understand then within that landscape of understanding and that landscape of devaluation, why someone would make so much effort in this kind of brief life to perform a sense of importance.
It's that performance that Patterson captures so well in her extravagant tapestries. Angela Carone, KPBS News.
Ebony G. Patterson's work will be on view through May 30th at the Lux Art Institute in Encinitas. A late spring storm is expected to hit San Diego tomorrow, bringing mountain snow possible as well as rain. Outdoor graduation ceremonies at Cal State San Marcos on Friday have been postponed because of expected rainy weather. We're looking at 60s by the beaches over the next few days. Another chance of rain for the inland valleys as well, with temperatures in the 60s, 40s and 50s in the mountain areas. Windy in the desert, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Midday Edition, a rally against racial profiling in San Diego. Black student organizations question police about their policies regarding traffic stops and gang documentation. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.